Welcome back to Yoga Awakening. I'm Katie. And as you might have guessed from my setup today, this is chair yoga. So all you need for today's practice is, you guessed it, a chair. Of course, you could also do this seated at the edge of a couch or a bed. Also great to remember some of these poses and tools maybe next time you're on a long flight, so spending a lot of time seated, maybe in the middle of a long work day. So let's get started. So first thing I'm going to do is find my seat in the chair, and that means that I'm not going to sit all the way back and slump back into the back of the chair, but instead I'm going to scooch forward just enough so that the spine can become really long. And I'll bring the hands to the tops of the thighs and start to ground down with the feet. Maybe I check in with the feet just for a moment or two, place them really mindfully, maybe placing one toe down at a time, more difficult than it sounds, spreading the toes, finding that even footing. And then I'll feel the sitting bones and the thighs grounding down into the chair. As I lift up through the crown of the head. And the first small movement I'm going to find is this tilt of the pelvis. So you can start by bringing hands to the hips. And then we're finding this small rocking motion. And it can be a pretty subtle move, or you might start to incorporate the rest of the body, maybe chest shining forwards as pelvis tilts forwards, and then rounding a little as the pelvis tilts back. And I can use my hands here to kind of help me find where that movement is happening. So if these little pelvic tilts are new to you, that can be a helpful landmark. I kind of bring my thumb just behind towards the back of the hips, and I can feel that tilt happening a little more easily. This is just a nice way to get started, start to bring our attention down into our seat, noticing how we tend to sit. Maybe you noticed right when you brought the hands to hips, where that pelvis was in space. Also just a nice little movement for the low back as we check in. One more rock there, front and back, and then I'll start to settle back into my seat, and maybe there's just some new attention there that I've cultivated. That might not necessarily translate into any drastically different position, but maybe there's just a subtle adjustment you're making to find something that feels really stable and kind of neutral-ish for you. And then out of that new awareness and grounding, I'm going to lift up even a little taller, maybe a couple wiggles of the shoulders. And then finally, some wiggles of the jaw. And even if that's all you did today, even if that was all the time you had, I think that would still be a great place to start. Already so much more connection that we're building in the body with these simple movements. Maybe now you can feel the muscles of the face relaxing a little bit more. And then we'll take this over into a seated twist. So over to the right to start, left hand comes to the outer edge of the right thigh, and then the way I like to do this, at least with the chair that I have, with this back here that's not too high, is to bring my elbow behind and then kind of hook the right fingers over to the right side of the chair. But you can modify as you need to with whatever prop or tool you're using. If you can do that with your chair, it's, I think, a really nice variation. I can already feel sort of some extra opening there through the chest, the right side of the chest, the right shoulder. So I'm just finding a little bit of leverage, but not so much that I feel like I'm really cranking to my full edge there. And then let's take a little bit of movement with the head and the neck. Whatever you like to get started. Some natural movement, nothing in particular. Noticing what's there. What can you sense as you move the head and the neck? Maybe there are some nice spots to pause. So pause anywhere that you like, or I'll give you a couple of options. I like to turn the head away from the twist, so away from the right shoulder. Pause there. And then chin to chest, and I'll make kind of this U or crescent moon shape with the chin tucked. Still in my twist, still grounding down with the feet. And then final round of breath here, I'll start to draw the gaze a little bit off to the right, maybe behind me. On your exhale, release the back, arm, hands. Find the tops of the thighs again. Just pause there in neutral. Then we'll take it over to the left. So right hand to left thigh. That left elbow hooks behind the back of the chair. And the left fingers hook around to give me just this extra bit of opening that, for me at least, feels really nice. I figure if we're seated, we might as well really use our chair or whatever we're seated on. Using it to create some new sensation. All right, so let's start a little exploration, head and neck movements. Pause anywhere you like, or you might copy me and take the head away, at this time from the left shoulder. And then chin tucks, small crescent moon or U shapes with the nose. And then one final round of breath, sending the gaze behind. Find your way back to center on the exhale. We'll take it into our side body stretch, starting off over to the right. So right palm connects with any part of the chair that you can find there, maybe just the edge here for me. And then left arm reaches up and overhead. On your exhale, back through center, second side, left hand down. Exhale, back through center. And now we'll take this forwards into a really simple forward fold. There's no particular instruction here that you need, no right way or wrong way to do it. I'll just allow the front of the body to get closer to the thighs. If I weren't protecting my mat with my blanket here, I've realized that would be a great prop to have in between thighs and chest, just to lift the chest up off the thighs a bit. creating a little more space, and then hands can come wherever they naturally want to be. Maybe that's on top of the feet or somewhere off to the side. And the only real goal here is just to allow the weight of the head to release, so you're not holding the head at all. As best you can, just allow it to be loose and heavy. You might even shake the head a little no, and a little yes. And then let's find stillness for about 3 rounds of breath. Maybe you can breathe down into the belly. I'll start to roll up from here, and I invite you to move really slowly, extra slow as we transition. The head will rise last. Find your way back to that neutral spine, hands connecting once again with tops of the thighs. And then let's take this into a gentle back bend. So gentle is key. And the way that I like to do this is to bring my hands to either side of the chair and then draw the elbows, if you can, behind you. And then my elbows at least are going to make some contact there with the back of the chair, which I think is really nice. So if you can get yourself into a similar position there with something behind you. And then that just allows me to find this really supported back bend. And I'm focusing here on opening through the chest, so not worrying too much about how big that shape is. But just this gentle opening through the chest. You could add a little tilt of the head coming back if that feels okay for the neck, or you might feel more comfortable just to keep your gaze straight out in front of you. Finding this contact, elbows to back of the chair. Finding that support. Let the belly be free here as you breathe. One more inhale. And on your exhale, first return the head to neutral. If it wasn't there already, you might just pause there for a moment or two. And then make your way out of your back bend. One more time here to return to neutral. Maybe notice what is feeling different in the body. What sensations might be present now as opposed to when we got started. And then our next 2 shapes, our final 2 shapes, we're not actually going to be seated in our chairs, but we are going to use them as props. So adjust yourself as you need to. I'm going to set my blanket off to the side for this first one. We're taking this into a down dog using the chair. And if your chair, for some reason, isn't going to move like this, where you can be behind it, or maybe you're on a plane somewhere, remembering this video, know that you could always modify this, just whatever you have out there in front of you. Maybe that's a wall. You can just bring your hands and it could look a little more like this, a little more lifted. We're just looking for this gentle lengthening of the spine. So it doesn't have to be too particular, but if you have a similar setup to me, it might feel nice to walk the feet back, start to send the hips back, maybe drop the head slightly. I feel it's great Really nice opening there through chest and shoulders, and then also through the backs of the legs. I like to just gently shift the hip side to side for my first couple of breaths. And then let's find our way into stillness. 2 more rounds of breath. Start to walk your feet up closer to your chair, coming on up to stand, and we'll transition into our ending shape. So I'm going to turn my chair around on my mat. This is where it might be nice to have a mat underneath you, but you certainly don't need it. And if you've got a blanket like I do, that's another great option. I'm going to bring the hips onto the blanket, and then I'm going to swing the shins onto my prop. And this is where you could certainly use a couch or a bed, or maybe just a couple of pillows stacked up. If you prefer a little less height here, you could skip the chair altogether. But I love this shape. This kind of legs up the chair, legs up the wall variation. So upper body is coming into Shavasana, corpse pose. And I'll go ahead and close the eyes, or you might keep a soft, sort of diffused gaze up towards the ceiling. I've got my prop, my blanket or towel right underneath the pelvis, so the low back is just kind of hanging free. This is a really nice one, whether you've been sitting all day or whether you've been standing all day. Really nice to switch up the position of the body and bring the feet and legs above the heart. Feel the shoulder blades grounding down into the mat or the floor. Feel this full support of the body that you're creating. Let any remaining muscular tension go. One more time to wiggle the jaw. Feel the eyes become heavy in their sockets. Stay here as long as you like. And if you're like me, you're ready to continue on with your day. Bring your practice to a close. Roll off to one side and make your way up. You can come up to stand or come back to sit on your chair. Let's draw the hands to heart center. The light in me bows to the light in you. Namaste.